Joe Dante grew up on a steady diet of 50 schlock, and so he made a love letter to William Castle. Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, they grew up on giant monster movies, and so they made Eight-Legged Freaks. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, he grew up on a steady diet of Western media that was bootlegged into his country. And so what does he do when he wants to make a Godzilla movie? He kidnaps a South Korean director and makes him make a kaiju flick. That's right, tonight we're going to be watching Pulgasari here on Video Ferox. So let's just roll the trailer, shall we?
Pulgasari, 伝説の大怪獣。誰も見ることのできなかった怪獣映画の最高傑作が 35mm ニュープリント完全版でついに日本上陸。全世界の映画ファンが夢にまで見た伝説的見せ場の数々、その全貌が明らかになる時が来た。1万人以上の群衆が繰り広げる驚異のスペクタクル、壮大なスケールで展開する破壊のカタルシス。今熱い注目の中、映画史に残る怪獣映画の金字塔が世界で初めて大スクリーンに登場する。全世界が待っていた伝説の怪獣映画、ついに解禁。Pulgasari, 伝説の大怪獣。
Alrighty, welcome back from the trailer to Pulgasari. Welcome back from the trailer to Pulgasari, a Korean monster movie from 1985, which we will totally get into the background on this motherfucker here soon enough. So Ashley, do you like Pulgasari? Fucking fuck.
It's all right. I mean, it's got problems, but nothing I can't handle. I just didn't watch it in one sitting like I would some other movies because it just... I like battle scenes in movies like this, but they tended to run together and they kind of all look the same.
This thing runs into the same problem that your mid-60s Godzilla movies ran into, where Toho was slashing the budget and it was all about the humans and not about the Godzillas. And honestly, people talking to each other is boring as fuck. So there are long stretches of people I just don't give two shits about talking at each other or fighting each other or doing not monster things.
Yeah, for a movie called Pulgasari, there's not a whole lot of Pulgasari in it.
If we're being fair, that's a trend that Godzilla often does. You'll get probably about 15 or 20 minutes of a Godzilla in a Godzilla movie. So them holding the Pulgasari back is, okay, to be expected, because they have no fucking budget.
And it builds up the expectation. If you get it all the time, it just ain't special anymore.
Exactly. So, yeah, if you like your mid-60s, if you like Godzilla versus the Smog Monster or Son of Godzilla or stuff like that, then you're probably going to at least like this.
Given the budget they had and what they were able to do with it, they kind of stretched it as far as it could go, but they did a lot of exterior shots, which I appreciated.
It doesn't look cheap, and it does look pretty good for what it is. It's just 10 years behind the curve, behind the Toho curve. So, yeah, really watch this movie once for the novelty value, and you can find this thing. It's in public domain, so finding it on YouTube, finding it on archive.org, stuff like that, easy enough to do. Check it out and see, once for the novelty, and then move on with your life, because I'm never going to watch this fucking thing ever again.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, well, let's just move on to the spoilers, and we'll get into this motherfucker. Okay, we'll get into the plot here soon enough, and the analysis of the movie soon enough. But we really kind of need to set up the movie first. And I swear, all of this data is relevant and, in fact, far more insane and way more interesting than the movie actually is. So, a lot of people may not know this, but Kim Jong-un, the father of the current dictator who is currently over... Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, great leader. Dear leader, I got that wrong. Oh God, I'm going to get a demerit. So the father of Dear Leader, he was a huge, monstrous film buff. He had he had thousands of movies, bootleg movies that he had gotten from the West.
And he kept them in a private theater in his compound, probably like 15,000 or so.
That was what the report was on Wikipedia. And he had like James Bond and Star Wars and Jaws and The Godfather and every movie he can get his hands on.
As it turns out, Mr. Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un,
Dear Leader,
was the head of propaganda before he, became the de facto leader of North Korea, and had gone out of his way to do all the kind of florid, praise for North Korea, coming from a long line of leaders and everything. All the kind of prosperity and a bright future for North Korea, given that North Korea was known for being kind of not very good place to live.
And of course, this is not exactly a atmosphere that will engender good filmmaking. So all the propaganda movies that he was making were objectively fucking awful. I mean, like, as in, okay, yes, people went to the theaters and saw them, but that was because they were being forced to go see him at the theaters at gunpoint. Into this, he got this brilliant idea of, well, wait a second, why don't we just get ourselves a competent director and have him make some movies? And so he kidnapped one. I mean, legitimately kidnapped one.
In order to get the attention of South Korean director Shin Sang-ok, our glorious leader had kidnapped his wife, Choi, I think it's Choi Fun-hee.
I think so. You'll have to forgive us. I mean, we're kind of shit at American, and so, Korean names are just going to flummox us.
So Choi and-hee was minding her business when these men approached her, basically out of nowhere, and kind of black bagged her.
Yeah, she was in Hong Kong. She was scouting for Oak's film studio. They were actually setting up branches in like Hong Kong and other Asian locations.
And so she winds up in North Korea. And basically that drew Sang-ok out of his, safety zone. And they ended up there for like 10 years, I think, or something, a decade.
Yeah, something like that. And he made, for Dear Leader, he made like 7 movies, including Pulgasari. And that's when he managed to make his great escape out of North Korea.
So the couple went to Yugoslavia to go scout out their next film. And in the process hired a bunch of people to essentially black bag them out of there and drop them like over on the other side of the planet, as far away from North Korea as they could get.
So by this point they had engendered a certain level of trust with the guards that were chaperoning him. And so they managed to get enough lead on the leash so that they jumped in a cab, flew to the fucking embassy and banged on the door and said, "We need asylum, we need asylum." And that's how they got a North Korean custody. And oh boy, was Dear Leader fucking pissed. He absolutely persona non grata these guys after they left.
But then again, also there was nothing that he could do about it since they were legally out of the country, and he had no right to do what he did to them to begin with, so he didn't really have much of a leg to stand on.
Exactly. And so Sang-ok and his wife, they would eventually make their way to America, where he would pick up his filmmaking career again, but he would go on to make The Three Ninjas Kick Back.
Basically, he was cranking out a lot of stuff to keep the lights on.
He never really achieved the greats that he had, because he made like 70 movies in Korea when he was still on the right side of the border, not the North Koreans.
But of course, in Hollywood, it's what have you done for me lately?
Exactly. That is the reason that we are taking a look at Pulgasari, because this movie is fucking insane.
It got buried for a while under a lot of the other stuff that he did. I mean, this is considered not a lost classic or anything.
It is the most infamous of his movies because it never got released outside of North Korea, except later on. It was like 10 or 15 years, and it did run in some Japanese film festivals, and did attain a little bit of notoriety. And like I said, you can find it on YouTube and archive pretty easily. So it did get a release.
Just not in the country that he wanted to release it.
So the movie is set in feudal Korea. So around the 1800s, 1700s, something like that. I don't know my Korean history that well, so I can't really put it more of a fine pin into it. And of course, you have a evil king. And the evil king, he is absolutely concerned that the peasants are going to rise up and overthrow him. And so what he's doing is he's going from village to village, and he's going into the town and saying, hey, give me all your iron. We're going to take your iron, we're going to forge it into weapons, and then we're going to put the people's rebellion down. Not realizing that he's in fact fomenting the very rebellion that he wants to squash by taking all their possessions.
He doesn't realize that the rebellion is already underway because there are weapons that are about to be smuggled out of the town by the son of the blacksmith. And he was on his way out, but they discovered all these farming utensils and other things that have been hidden in like hay or something like that. And so they're like, oh, maybe this isn't such a good idea. Maybe you should just like get the hell out right now and don't worry about us. You just need to get out so you have a future.
And so the royal guards, they get all this stuff and they give it to the blacksmith and say, hey, take all this iron and forge it into weapons for us, so we'll come back the next day and we'll get the stuff for you. And the blacksmith, he's realizing, okay, these people are going to die if we keep the stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return all these farming implements and stuff that they need to live, and so they can go take it and run up into the mountains, and I'll deal with the repercussions.
And so everybody gets captured. Basically, the king decides, well, these people are no good, so we need to imprison them to teach them a lesson. So he imprisons everybody in the town, but he's feeding everybody except the blacksmith, who is basically going to starve to death, and he's wasting away.
That's when we get the son who was the bandit leader, the rebel leader, who had went up into the mountains. He comes back down to find his pop, and he's bringing along his fiancée, and they're like, uncle, don't die. Gets like a ball of rice and like throws it into the prison cell for him, and it's like, eat that, and he's like, okay, thank you. And instead of eating this ball of rice, he takes the mud and he takes the rice and kind of forges it into this little doll.
Figurine.
This little figurine about that tall.
And then the fiancée, she has been working with needles and stuff. She's been like sewing something together, and she sticks her thumb with a pin, and the blood drops onto the figurine.
Holy crap, what the hell did she do to her finger? Because one stab and all of a sudden blood just comes blazing out. It's like, that was just a needle. That wasn't a fucking Freddy Krueger moment.
Yeah, this is some pre-anime kind of shit here.
Exactly. High pressure blood in a samurai film, not unusual. Okay, what the hell am I thinking? And so this drop of blood lands on this little monster doll thing, which then comes to life and instantly starts eating every bit of iron in the little sewing basket, so all her sewing needles and stuff, which starts growing.
So takes like a sword and takes a big chunk out of it. Everybody's standing there kind of bemused about this. And of course, the thing is growing and growing like really rapidly, like kind of Resident Evil monster kind of rapidly until he gets to about human size. But nobody freaks out about this. They all take it with not necessarily a grain of salt, but they accept it.
Even the king is kind of blasé about well, wait a second, this historical monster has come back from wherever, from the dawn of time, to hassle me. Okay, whatever. Just get my troops and go stomp the monster.
And initially, he doesn't even believe in Pulgasari, because the monster is growing and starts eating shit, and the soldiers come, and they're trying to lean on everybody, and so Pulgasari is going to kick these guys' ass. And so some of the old man had initially, there was like one of the, I think the rebel leader, when the troops come back with the king, and there's like, where's all the metal? Oh, Pulgasari ate it. Oh, bullshit, there's no such thing. They don't believe him, because Pulgasari is taken off at this point in order to go find more stuff to eat, because they need to, they don't have any refined metal. He's eaten it all.
And that's kind of the problem that you start running into with the movie, is that everybody is kind of ill-defined. And I mean, yeah, you can kind of tell, hey, that's the king because he has a really big goofy hat. But like all the soldiers and all the peasants and stuff, they're all dressed really similar and they all look really similar. And honestly, I can't tell one group from another aside from like maybe the costumes and one side is fighting the other. So we've said this 100 times in the Video Nasty Project, where if you don't care about the characters, then you're not going to care about the movie. And I found myself just not caring about the plight of the citizens, or the king, or hell, Pulgasari.
It gets to the point where this reminds me of a Shaw Brothers movie where all the lame Shaw Brothers characters are put in the same film.
Exactly. But unlike a Shaw Brothers movie, even the really bad ones are always something happening. Every 10 minutes there's a kung fu fight or an assassination or something. Here we just get long stretches of blah, 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 blah.
Pulgasari is essentially the child of the fiancé and the rebel leader's father. Is basically literally their child, because it's the old man who turns this rice into a little figurine, and it's the fiancé whose blood turns this creature into a living thing. But the creature is bound to the fiancé because it's her blood, so it's essentially I wouldn't say a slave, but a familiar, the golem, as it were.
There was one story beat that Pulgasari managed to hit that I'm kind of shocked that hasn't appeared in real Godzilla movies, where there's this one scene where the king is like, what the fuck am I going to do about this giant monster rampaging through the land? And so he goes and consults like a priestess who says, oh yeah, no, I can absolutely exorcise the demon for you and restore peace to the land. And so they wheel in this priestess, and she does not quite the Mothra dance, but I mean, it's something kind of similar where it's a ritual and crazy shit happens. Of course, it doesn't work. But it's like, okay, that makes sense if Godzilla is supposed to be representation of the angry Earth, depending on which iteration you're talking about, because there's Friend to All Children and then Angry Earth Vengeance. If Godzilla is the spirit of the angry Earth, then why not bring in a priestess to exorcise Godzilla? That seems like a really clever, if kind of pointless, plot point for a real Godzilla Toho movie.
Yeah, I suppose maybe it just boils down to the type of movie they were willing to make. And since this takes place in an antiquated age, the age of antiquity, then they go and follow more religion-based versus tech-based. Even though there's some pretty high tech in here. So among the weapons the government has to throw at Pulgasari, they have explosive-powered arrows, which they fire at him out of giant ballistas.
And they have some sort of like cannonball thing that Pulgasari catches in his mouth and then spits back at the troops.
Exploding balls, I think they were. And he's just like, hey, who are you kidding? I think he eats one and it's just like, oh, that was good. And just,
oh, I burned it. So it does have a couple of flame attacks, but it's not anything like Godzilla just blowing up half of fucking Toho.
Yeah, Pulgasari is just a big thing you aim at whatever you want to get stomped, and you just step on. In fact, he does step on one guy. Imagine being stepped on by this giant metal man, bulldog thingy.
They've got to get use out of that goddamn foot that they spent a ton of cash on. So they totally Godzilla versus Bambi the King at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah, and the foot moves. I mean, the foot is expressive. In fact, when Pulgasari's not doing anything, the rubber suit the guy is in is quite. It moves a lot. So it gives the impression this creature animal thing is alive, because of the way the actor beneath it just brings, the acting. And they might have had air pumps in there somewhere to just make it look like the metal was alive.
And so the king uses this familiarity with Pulgasari to lure it into a trap. Like they threaten the girl, and so, Pulgasari comes up and he's like, you get over here and get into this cage and we're going to burn the cage, or if you don't, we're going to cut off her head. How does the king know this data? How does... maybe he knows the legends or something?
Yeah, well, Pulgasari is based on a Korean and Chinese legend, so assumedly in universe, everybody in Korea knows this legend like we know about the Lone Ranger.
Like Paul Bunyan, okay, we know he's got an axe, and
right.
he's got a giant blue ox. Okay, fine, I'll give the movie that.
Pulgasari ends up getting into these situations because of his size. It takes like an entire army to fight him. And even though they can't necessarily beat him the old-fashioned way, they can't beat him with arrows or swords or knives or anything like that, because he just eats them. And the more he eats, the bigger he gets, until he's about almost Godzilla size, maybe just a little shorter.
And that, of course, is the propaganda message of the movie, is that here the state will take care of you and, avoid the monster because the monster is bad and that sort of thing. And hey, the state's great. However, what Sung-ok, the director, was able to do was he slipped in once the king is dead, you now have this giant monster who is consuming all your resources. Ha ha, fuck you, Kim Jong-un. Look at this, I'm making your propaganda movie suck.
The fiancée in the movie, she addresses this directly. She's like, well, you're eating everything there is until we have nothing. And so we have to go from place to place, eating everybody else's lunch until eventually you run out and we have to go invade another country.
And so, realizing the monster that she has unleashed, the girl goes and finds this giant bell. And, we're talking one of the 8-foot tall, something you would see at, like, Notre Dame or whatever.
Yeah, a monastery.
One of the big monastery bells. And she climbs in, rings the bell, and Pulgasari comes over and is like, ooh, look at that metal, grabs it, eats it, and her, all in one big old gulp, realizes, oh shit, I've just ate my creator, and then explodes.
Everything that was giant was merely a facade, because once the giant monster Pulgasari crumbles to the ground, the woman's body is left, but there's the small Pulgasari who was about child size when he was starting to eat, and he goes walking off into the distance.
And then there's like this ball of light that comes from the explosion crater and then like drifts over to the woman, and she has been developed in a glow, and then there's like a tear in her eye, and that's where the end is.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Maybe that was her, being allowed into the heavenly realm, and she's the last of her people in that particular town. And she made the noble sacrifice, and so she gets to go to heaven or whatever. And the tear is for her, Pulgasari and the people that were killed by all these, government troops and everything.
So being a North Korean production on the cheap with basically a third world production studio, the special effects look pretty decent. But they're about 10 years behind what the peers were doing, because this came out in 1985, so a year after Godzilla Returns or Godzilla 84, depending on what title you're paying attention to. And suit technology and miniature technology had really exploded in those 10 years since Godzilla was resting. This is more in line with the terror of Mechagodzilla and those sort of stuff that was happening in 1968, 1974-ish, that time frame.
And this reminds me of the situation where you have a bunch of people who will take some tech that's been abandoned and they have nothing. And so they have to, by sheer force of will, conjure up a movie out of bits and pieces.
Oh, and we didn't mention the other insane part of the movie. Yes, they kidnapped Sung-ok and brought him in to make the movie. But they also tricked the guys from Toho, who had been doing the Godzilla special effects up to that point, down to North Korea under the pretense that, hey, let's go to China. Oh, wait, no, you're really going to North Korea. And now that you're here, you're going to make our movie for us. So they had the suit actor from Godzilla 84 and the suit actor who had been playing Minya, the son of Godzilla, in the small Pulgasari outfit.
They did the rear process shots of Pulgasari walking up towards the soldiers or behind the villagers running into battle, and it looks really cheap and cheesy.
They did get a lot of use out of that giant Pulgasari foot, though.
They did. And I felt really bad for this creature, because, for one thing, he was completely just out of his depth. He's being forced to do the bidding of these people who are using him as a bludgeon against a government that they can't fight on their own. And he's got to fill himself up with something, and the look on his face when he's betrayed by his people or made to do stuff that he really doesn't want to do, or when he's being burned alive, when he's being made of metal, is, you burn alive, metal burns forever. Just the look on the eyeballs, which are the only organic parts of this creature, is just tear-jerking.
So being a super duper low budget movie with no resources to make the movie, the music behind the thing is weird as fuck.
Yeah, it sounds something like John Carpenter meets Phantasm.
I was actually thinking that the opening, at least, sounded an awful lot like The Burning. that kind of weird synth score. And actually the opening's kind of creepy because it's a still of Pulgasari over the credits as they roll. And this weird synth. I thought the effect looked pretty good and sounded pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine Riz or Tolani making music like this for a monster movie made in Korea.
But the thing is, unlike your Mondo movie, unlike, say, Brutes and Savages, where the purpose of the soundtrack was to be completely discordant with what you're seeing on screen, it doesn't have that effect here. It just out of place, and this period piece with these villagers from feudal Korea and this weird synth music.
80s Euro synth pop kind of sound, but like cheap synth pop, like you would put on a no-budget Euro horror movie.
Actually, that's incredibly apt, even though it's a kaiju flick as opposed to a no-budget Italian horror flick. But yeah, they're very similar in tone and feel and production quality.
I gotta say, they didn't skimp on the cinematography, at least with that. They had a very good camera operator on this. And the fight scenes, the choreography was really good in that standard way.
I want to see some of Sung Ok's other stuff that he did outside of North Korea, because he had 70 movies, so he was really prolific, and then he wrapped up with Three Ninjas Kick Back.
Yeah, so he had a overstuffed CV, and then he took it easy. I mean, once he reached the land of Hollywood and got wrangled into doing some low rent stuff, he found a different kind of chain around his neck.
All right, that's Pulgasari, and I guess we'll catch y'all next week.
I want a Pepsi!
Yes, folks, what Lola wants, you can get. Join the Sokola family and friends at the refreshment stand now for delicious candy, hot buttered popcorn, and best of all, ice-cold Pepsi-Cola.
Okie dokie, kids. Thank you for joining Ashley and I as we watched a movie that you're probably never ever going to see. And believe me, you're better off for it than I am. Well, next week we're going to be kicking off a brand new month, paying homage to one of the greats of the Video Ferox pantheon. It's Roger Corman month, so come back and check out those flicks. Drop us email, thevideonastyproject@gmail.com, and until we get around to watching X, the man with X-ray eyes, stay evil.